Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books that I read in July. So in terms of the quantity of books that I was reading a lot more in July than I have in previous months. I read 12 books in total, so perhaps I'm gradually getting back into the swing of carving out proper time for reading and devoting to reading. I did do a reading vlog in July as well, which I will leave down below and in the cards, and I'm quickly going to whiz through the books that I read for that. It was a Love Island themed reading vlog. So I read Not the Type by Camilla Thurlow. This was a reread for me. I think this is a really fantastic book. It looks at Camilla's career prior to Love Island when she was working at Halo, how her life changed after Love Island, and how she's always found this kind of comfort in uncomfortable situations. I think this is a really fantastic book. I also read You Are Dope by Ovi Soko. I think this book is great, but I am going to be unhauling it just because I know I'm not the target demographic for this. I know I'm not the reader that's going to benefit the most from it, and I want to put it back into the world so someone like that can benefit from it. This is really a self-help book for young men, but in particular young Black men, about confidence, your place in the world, having self-belief and emotional openness. I think this would be really great for someone who's maybe read Marcus Rashford's non-fiction books, but they're just a bit too old to be reading Marcus's books. They need something a little bit older. I think this is the one. I also read Becoming Molly May by Molly May Hague, which is Time I'll Never Get Back. The only fiction book I read in that reading vlog was Until I Met You by Amber Rose Gill. This is a Mills and Boon romance about a young woman named Samantha whose boyfriend breaks up with her just before she's due to go to her friend's wedding in Tobago, and she meets a guy called Roman there and sparks start flying. I had a good time, just your kind of standard fun time romance book. And finally, one of my favourite Love Islanders of all time is Yewande, and I read her new non-fiction book, Reclaiming. I will spend a little bit more time talking about this one because I didn't finish it in the reading vlog. I'd only read, I think, 3 of the essays at that point. But all of these essays are kind of an exploration of Yewande's identity, but also like she's really researched into the wider societal cultural contexts to which her identity sits in. So particularly like her identity as a Black woman. She's talking about body image, she's talking about the significance of name, she's talking about mental health, she's talking about social media and fame, she's talking about relationships, but all of that is through the lens of what it is like to experience those things specifically as a Black woman. And I think another thing that I found really interesting about this book was the Irish angle that she brings to it as well. The writing style of this very much feels like you're kind of just sat down and having a chat with her. And at moments I found the juxtaposition of the really thorough research she's done and that very chatty tone just to be slightly jarring. But that's such a minor thing, and I think actually for a lot of readers that kind of chatty colloquial tone would actually make the kind of in-depth research that she's talking about a lot more palatable. So I would highly recommend this, whether you know her from Love Island or not. I think there's so much of value in these essays. She's given me a lot to think about, and I think she is a really valuable voice to listen to. While we're in the realm of celebrity nonfiction, I read I Love This Game by Patrice Evra. So I won't spend too much time on this one, but Patrice Evra is a footballer, probably most well known for playing left back for Manchester United, which if you don't know is the team that I support religiously. And this memoir is a really open and honest account about essentially Patrice's whole life up to this point, from his childhood all the way through his early footballing career, the height of his success, the tail end of his career, and what life is like for him now. And all of those experiences are conveyed with a real honesty. I think in the sections that were particularly about a career that I followed very closely, it was really interesting to see particular incidents from his perspective, particularly like incidents where he's dealt with racism on the pitch. And I do always think it's interesting hearing from players who are part of that kind of generation of Manchester United players where working under Sir Alex Ferguson, being so focused on achieving maximum success, I just find hearing about how that whole machine worked, I find it really interesting. But Patrice's personal story is also very fascinating. It's heartbreaking. He speaks very openly about the grooming and sexual assault that he endured when he was very young. And one of the things that Patrice talks about quite openly is the pressures that he felt to kind of perform masculinity, to be tough, to be hard, and how that prevented him from speaking up about what happened to him. I do think I actually want to start reading more sporting autobiographies of this nature, because it is something that I'm really interested in, and it's something that I kind of traditionally have gravitated more towards documentaries for, but I thought this book was absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed it. I read 3 books when I was on holiday in Prague, starting with Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is actually the first Emily Henry book that I've ever read, and I'm now really keen to read her 2 previous books. I did wonder if this was maybe going to be like a little bit too close to home to be reading on holiday, because it is kind of publishing adjacent. It's about the romance between Nora, who is known as this kind of cutthroat literary agent, and then Charlie, who is an editor, and they have this kind of like tension, like enemies to lovers kind of vibe. She's kind of this like high-flying city gal, got her career bossing it, is kind of done with the whole dating thing, and I kind of really empathized with how she feels about dating at the start of this book. Her sister convinces her to go away to this small town to just kind of get a break from everything. But who does she run into while she's there? It's Charlie, the editor that she's got this like enemies thing with. And I had a great time. I did. I enjoyed myself. I think one of the things I really enjoyed about this was like how self-aware it was. So it was these kind of like 2 quite like literary people stepping into a situation that is straight out of like a Netflix rom-com. Like, she goes to this small town, sister is like persuading her to have a bit of a fling with like a lumberjack-esque kind of guy, and then she runs into someone from the city, has the whole enemies to lovers thing. And I feel like Emily Henry is just like, she's really like aware of how easily like tacky and cheesy that can be, and she just never strays into it being tacky. Like, these feel like real people. And Miss Henry, oh my goodness, do you know how to write sexual tension? Yes, you do. Oh my god, you do. It's really difficult not to directly compare this book to The Hating Game, but I just feel like this book is better in every way. But I think just because it wasn't set in an office either, because they were out of that office setting, it just being like too close to work. Really enjoyed this. Definitely recommend it if you're after a fun romance read. I also read A Room Called Earth by Madeline Ryan. I read this in one sitting on the plane to Prague, and I don't know if that was like a good way or a bad way to experience this novel, because it is written in a kind of stream of consciousness. Like, you're very much in the main character's head, experiencing the world as she is, and you're very much with her with that. And I do wonder if maybe because I read it in one sitting, it kind of just washed over me in a way. For most of this book, our main character is kind of getting ready for a party, and then we follow her to the party and like some of the interactions that she has there. Everything that she's experiencing, she conveys in a lot of detail. So like all of the colours that she can see, all of the details of the room that she's in, smell and touch is conveyed in great detail. Sound and senses are just very kind of overstimulating, and it's kind of hard to keep track of what is actually happening because you're so involved in those very sensory experiences. And I think that's intentional because our main character is autistic, and I think the way this book is written through that lens is very much, first of all, allows autistic readers to see a book that conveys the world in a way that they can recognize, but also for me reading this as someone who isn't autistic gives me a sense of what that might be like to experience the world like that. I think it was also really valuable that this main character definitely isn't the kind of stereotypical way you might think of an autistic person. I think a lot of the media that is out there that does have any level of representation for autistic characters does so in quite a two-dimensional stereotypical kind of way, and this main character is not like that. Obviously, I'm not an Own Voices reviewer on this front, so this is just my perspective on that element of the book from a not autistic POV. I have seen some extremely positive reviews from within the autistic community and some really negative reviews as well, but I guess everyone experiences that differently. There isn't just kind of one homogenous experience of what it is like. But on another note, I think this cover is extremely cool. While I was in Prague, I did also want to pick up a piece of Czech writing, and I found this really gorgeous bookshop in Prague. And I could have gone Kafka. But I didn't. I decided to pick up To Loud of Solitude by Bohumil Hrabal. Apologies for me really struggling with that name. This is a weird book. I'm not entirely sure what exactly happened in it, but it's about this guy called Hanta who has spent the last 35 years compacting trash. That's his job. But from this, he is rescuing kind of great works of writing, great works of literature, and collecting them in his home. So he's someone who's kind of steeped amongst kind of great writing and great minds, and is kind of absorbing this intellect and takes so much personal value in how he is drenched amongst all of this great thought and writing. He's quite reclusive, doesn't really have like a network or much of a life. His boss essentially thinks he's an idiot, doesn't really see anything of value in him. And there's this kind of juxtaposition of how he is viewed externally with how he views himself internally as someone who sees the incredible value in all of this great writing that other people are chucking away with the rubbish. It gets quite philosophical at points, not really sure what the plot was. However, when there is this kind of exposition about the beauty of books and the beauty of writing, I found that like really quite touching. As someone that obviously shares that value in seeing other people's experiences depicted through fantastic writing, I definitely aligned myself with what he was expressing there. I think what we would consider great writing would probably differ significantly, but I did really appreciate what this book was saying about the power of books. Very short as well. This is definitely a novella, not a novel. It's under 100 pages, and that was something that I really needed on that holiday, to just sit down and read something else in just one go, cover to cover. And finally, I have a trio of kids books that I read. I read Some Places More Than Others by Renee Watson. I really enjoyed this book. It is about a young girl named Amara who wants to connect more with her father's side of the family. So there isn't a huge amount of contact with his side of the family. They live in New York, and there's definitely a lot of tension in the family, particularly between her father and her grandfather. And this desire to feel more grounded in where she came from is kind of prompted by the fact that her parents are expecting a new baby, so she's going to be a big sister. And I think how the author handled that dynamic was done really well, of how Amara isn't against becoming a big sister, but she does feel a bit worried about it. And also how the author conveyed the emotional difficulty that her parents are going through, in the fact that they had been trying for a baby, her mother had been pregnant before but had miscarried. I think how that was conveyed for a child audience was done really excellently. But yes, so we follow Amara going to New York with her dad to kind of connect with that side of the family, and throughout that, not only is she helping those elders in her family to mend their relationships, but she's also learning so much more about New York and learning about Harlem and learning about significant Black historical figures, and her positioning herself in the world, not only with her immediate family, but as part of this wider community, and how all of these things make her who she is. I'm really keen to read more from this author as well. I think she's got some YA books. This is a little younger than that, so I'd be really intrigued to read some of her books for teens. I also read The Case of the Runaway Brain by Nick Sheridan. This is a book that is published by the place that I work, and it is about a trio of unlikely friends solving a mystery about the unusual goings-on at Madame Strange's Academy for Incredibly Insolent Children. They know that there's something fishy afoot and are determined to sniff out what is going on with Madame Strange, what she is doing to brainwash the children at this school, and they are using all of their skills of detection to find out what is going on with this mystery. I love how the author kind of brought his background in journalism into how this trio approach solving the mystery. Like, they are little like detective journalists, and it definitely has kind of like a Scooby-Doo kind of vibe to it as well. Really funny. I think perfectly placed for this kind of younger audience who are maybe like interested in that kind of Scooby-Doo vibe, solving mysteries, and it has illustrations by David O'Connell as well that accompany the text really fantastically. And finally, I read The Last Firefox by Lee Newberry. This is so cute. So this is about a young boy named Charlie who, like Amara, is dealing with the experience of a growing family. So Charlie is adopted, he has two dads, and his dads sit him down and kind of ask him how he would feel if they adopted another child. And in a similar kind of way, Charlie's happy about this, but he also has his reluctances, not sure how it's going to change their family, and he also feels like he's not brave enough to be a protective big brother. One day his life changes when he becomes the carer of a firefox. Charlie decides to name this fox Cadno. Cadno is the only one of his kind left. He has been brought from another realm, and it's Charlie's job to protect him. But he also needs to keep Cadno a secret, and it's not that easy to keep a firefox a secret. I mean, first of all, it's a fox. Second of all, it's a fox that could set on fire at any point. And over the course of this book, Charlie is learning how to be brave. Learning how to be brave in how he takes care and takes responsibility for this creature, but also him learning when he needs to ask for help. I loved all of the different relationships in this book. Obviously that really gorgeous bond between Charlie and the cub, but also the bond that he has with both of his dads and the bond he has with his friends. And oh my god, did this book make me broody for a pet fox. I love foxes. Foxes are one of my favourite animals. And Cadno is just so cute, like so cute. I really enjoyed this. So that is it. They are all of the books that I read in July. They will all be linked down below in the description if you want to find out more about them. Do leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of them and what you thought of them, or let me know what you're reading at the minute. I would love to find out. It was a pretty good reading month all in all. I do feel like I'm kind of getting back into my reading stride now, but let's see how we get on in August. That is it for me today. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.